I wish next to explain the educational system of Lycurgus and how it differs from other systems. In the other Greek states, parents who profess to give their sons the best education place their boys under the care and control of a moral tutor as soon as they can understand what is said to them, and send them to a school to learn letters, music, and the exercises of the wrestling ground. Moreover, they soften the children's feet by giving them sandals, and pamper their bodies with changes of clothing, and it is customary to allow them as much food as they can eat. Lycurgus, on the contrary, instead of leaving each father to appoint a slave to act as tutor, gave the duty of controlling the boys to a member of the class from which the highest offices are filled. In fact, to the warden, as he was called. He gave this person authority to gather the boys together, to take charge of them, and to punish them severely in case of misconduct. He also assigned him a staff of youths provided with whips to chastise them when necessary, and the result is that modesty and obedience are inseparable companions at Sparta. Instead of softening the boys' feet with sandals, he required them to harden their feet by going without shoes. He believed that if this habit were cultivated, that a youth who had accustomed himself to go barefoot would leap and jump and run more nimbly than a boy in sandals. And instead of letting them be pampered in the matter of clothing, he introduced the custom of wearing one garment throughout the year, believing that they would thus be better prepared to face changes of heat and cold. As to the food, he required the prefect to bring with him such a moderate amount of it that the boys would never suffer from repletion and would know what it was to go with their hunger unsatisfied. For he believed that those who underwent this training would be better able to continue working on an empty stomach, if necessary, and would be capable of going on longer without extra food, if the word of command were given to do so. They would want fewer delicacies and would accommodate themselves more readily to anything put before them, and at the same time would enjoy better health.
I was not born into a poor family, but when I quit my job and got married, I was poor. God, in His wonderful way, arranges circumstances so that we struggle. That's the best thing for us. And you still follow the principles of God. And if we can teach our children self-denial, that's the greatest lesson. Don't envy those, you young people, don't envy those other children whose parents are rich, they can have everything. Don't envy them. Wait 20 years and see where they are. Useless to God and useless to man. Be thankful if you've got parents who refuse to give you certain things that you asked for because they wanted you to grow up godly. To teach our children to stand up for the Lord. To teach our children to stand for the truth in school where so many wrong things are being done nowadays. Don't teach your children to be popular. Jesus was not. He was despised and rejected by men.
In order that the boys might never lack a ruler even when the warden was away, he gave authority to any citizen who chanced to be present to require them to do anything that he thought right, and to punish them for any misconduct. This had the effect of making the boys more respectful. In fact, boys and men alike respect their rulers above everything, and that a ruler might not be lacking to the boys even when no grown man happened to be present. He selected the keenest of the prefects and gave to each the command of a division. And so, at Sparta, the boys are never without a ruler. I think I ought to say something about intimacy with the boys, since this matter also has a bearing on education. For instance, among the Boeotians, man and boy live together like married people. If someone, being himself an honest man, admired a boy's soul and tried to make him an ideal friend without reproach and to associate with him, he approved and believed in the excellence of this kind of training. But if it was clear that the attraction lay in the boy's outward beauty, he banned the connection as an abomination I have now dealt with the Spartan system of education and that of the other Greek states. Which system turns out men more obedient, more respectful, and more strictly temperate?
So Spartan children were taught at an early age that heavy drinking was for slaves only. Every now and then, Spartan soldiers would force their slaves to get drunk to the point of belligerence. Once thoroughly blotto, the soldiers would parade the drunk slaves in front of the local children to let them see how ridiculous they looked. Drinking was a sign of weakness. Of course, soldiers were allowed a glass of wine with a meal. Being a Spartan at 7 years old meant that you were scrutinized all the time. In regards to clothing, each future soldier was given one garment a year to wear, a red cloak. This was in part a way to prevent the children from gaining too much weight. If you got fat and couldn't figure out how to clothe yourself with what you were given, then the only way to fit in their garment was to exercise and eat less.
The Spartans were tough, fierce, and feared in their era. In 820 BC, the legislator Lycurgus set a code of standards and laws for the Spartan people. Amongst this way of living was having austerity of military and really almost everything in life, equality of free citizens, health and physical fitness, and the discouragement of greed. In fact, early Sparta was so against the hoarding of wealth, they refused to use coinage. They chose to use a fairly impractical system of iron spikes, or obelos, which is where the coinage term obol comes from. And 6 of these obols, well, that makes a drachma. And in ancient Greek, that translates to pretty much what you could fit in your hand, how much you could grasp.
The greatest shame for a Spartan was to return home alive from a lost battle. So too, do not return from a challenge having not given everything. Only consume plain food and never eat to the point of satisfaction. This will not only bring about a leanness for battle, but also foster mental fortitude. Seek out intense competition. You will push yourself much harder. Speed, strength, and agility are less essential than stamina, grit, endurance, and courage. Do not engage in gossip. Only engage in conversation that will nourish and strengthen your spirit. Fight for a good cause. Use every ounce of your being to push that cause further, and do not be afraid to defend it. Surround yourself with people who are ruthlessly devoted to becoming their greatest selves. A leader does not watch on safely from the rear. Continuously introduce yourself to difficult situations where you are forced to either sink or swim. A great Spartan must have the ability to quickly adapt. Refuse to be a victim of circumstance. Learn to be self-reliant and prepared for any situation. Find ways to implement short bursts of discomfort into your daily life. This will ensure growth and prevent you from falling into sloth. Dedicate yourself to perpetual physical training, regardless of circumstance and feelings.